But AEW 250 this past week, the big thing was, and still is MJF becoming the new international champion in a match against Will Osprey in what many are saying is the best match on AEW Dynamite history. Weirdly enough, it's not the longest match in the history of AEW Dynamite. I think that was Hangman Adam Page and Bryan Danielson on Winter is Coming. But 58 minutes these guys kicked off Dynamite this past week from Little Rock, Arkansas on AEW Dynamite 250. So just asking quick question, to you. A lot of people are talking about it. The timing. What does that matter to you? Too long, too short? Does that have any effect on your appreciation for a match like this? Do you take any consideration into the timing of it's a better match that way, it's a worse match that way, just based on the timing?
I mean, for me personally, I would rather just see it on a pay-per-view because I would rather see have people pay for it because something that great and that long, it was 59 minutes and 58 seconds if I'm not mistaken. It was an instant classic, and for me personally, like watching the match, it was pay-per-view quality all the way through with two guys that they are two of arguably the best wrestlers in the world. And I believe that's Will Ospreay's first loss in AEW, if I'm not mistaken. So what better way for Will Ospreay to lose his first match than to somebody of the caliber of MJF? And obviously, it doesn't hurt. Will Ospreay's his push or the aura around him.
Well, I mean, maybe on Dynamite. Remember, Will Ospreay did not beat Swerve Strickland, right? It was champion versus champion.
Yeah, but I thought that was. I didn't think that was counted as a loss because I was looking at the win-loss records and according to what I was reading, it was one. It was I think there was. Oh no, it was two losses. You're right because there was a tag match in there too, wasn't there, that he lost?
I don't know the information on that, but I know that he's not a champion any longer. Yeah. He's not the world champion. He's not international champion. When it comes to the timing, I guess so. I don't want to say I'd rather see it on pay-per-view because one thing I guess AEW is good for in the sense of, yeah, their pay-per-views are great, but also it makes it so that, it doesn't discount television. I'm glad that they care about the importance of television, and this isn't just about getting to the pay-per-view. It's nice to sneak these in every so often, and that's why I don't care about the time, because a lot of people say that this match was very, very long. A lot of people say, too long. Should have been on pay-per-view, too long for TV, too long in general, right? Just kind of a waste. I think it's a waste if the match is boring. I don't think the match was boring. I think we saw with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels in that first Iron Man match. A lot of people say that's a classic, but a lot of people say, in hindsight, not really, because it's just a lot of rest holds. I didn't see that in this match. I thought there was a lot of excitement. I thought there wasn't a lot of those, like, say, rest holds, kind of just wasting time. I also would say that if this was a regular occurrence on Dynamite, then it would be too long. If this was a weekly thing where they had a 45-minute match, then yes. But anything presented in a rare form is good in my eyes. Monday Night Raw being 3 hours, not bad if it's not always 3 hours. If it's 3 hours every once in a while for special occasions. So when a match like this is long because it's a special occasion and it catches you off guard, that's when I think
here's my thing though. Why not make the people pay for it? You know what I mean? Like that's my argument to it. Like I get you
are making the people pay for it here in a way, right? Because
you
got to sell tickets to Dynamite.
I'm not just talking about the audience in the stands. I'm talking about the pay-per-view buys, and that's where you make your money.
But hey, we talk about AEW having struggles with attendance, right? We talk about people, and where they haven't struggled with attendance really is in the pay-per-view field. The pay-per-views have been doing all right when it comes to attendance. It's the Dynamites and the Collisions that struggle. So if you can say, hey, there's a reason why if you were thinking about only going to Forbidden Door, only going to All In, or only going to pay-per-view, you might want to check out a Dynamite because we're going to give you something worth coming out for. And it's not necessarily the Little Rock crowd that they're talking about. It's the crowd in the future who might come to a Dynamite because they don't want to miss out. So that's what I'm talking about when it comes to paying for it.
And actually, real quick, just a little, I guess, cliff note or sidebar. So I was looking at Will Ospreay's record. So I was looking at it incorrectly. So he has one tag team loss. He has two losses. The Swerve Strickland match, I forgot about that. Again, Swerve Strickland, MJF, those are two people, two great wrestlers that you lose to. Not a big thing. the area where he's lost the most matches, which is 3, is in trios matches of all things. So just wanted to touch on that a little bit. But back to your point though, for me, I would rather a match of that caliber. I wouldn't mind them, like, I don't mind if they have, like, they build it up on Dynamite, but for me, like, I'd rather see them for an hour, in this case, I'd rather see it on a pay-per-view. That's just my take on it. I just think you got to save some of these special moments for the pay-per-view format. Because here's the thing, they're putting on these, like, quote-unquote dream matches all the time on Dynamite. Like, if this is supposed to be one of those dream matches, why not? Why would you just put it? I guess, yeah, sure. It's the 250th.
I do agree with you there that, yes, it wasn't just completely out of nowhere that it was a good match because of the fact that they're hyping up the match itself and it's worthy opponents. It isn't just like, this isn't just Chad Gable and Sami Zayn in the IC title match or some New Day tag team match on Raw that turned out to be this classic that no one saw coming. But I will say one thing, and this is my take in wrestling and it's my take in sports. One thing I like is the surprise show of excellence and the surprise of something. And what I mean by that and how I can describe that is, and I've said this maybe before, right? I like it when, let's say, I think, if I'm not wrong, you're the more sportsy guy in the sense, the ESPY Awards, right? Don't they every year have Game of the Year, right? They have what they think is Game of the Year. And I think I've said this before. I put more stock in something that is Game of the Year if it occurred not on a big stage. Because for it to be included in Game of the Year, but not be the Super Bowl and not be Game 7 of the NBA Finals or not be something like that, means that it did something intrinsically to command that attention. If the main event of the year in wrestling is always going to be WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, something like a big major event. So for this match to be included, meaning it wasn't something we tuned in for with preconceived notions. You got to look at it, right, like this. Obviously people have biases and stereotypes, and whether it's like police or anything like that, you come in and you think, oh, the usual suspects, something, or I'm expecting this. And so if you're expecting something and then it just kind of delivers on what you expect, that's great. But I like it when you're not expecting it, when it comes out of nowhere and it commands your attention, right? You want to see it's great when you go to see a great singer and they sing really good, but that's what you're just expecting. So it's middle of the road when it comes to excitement, but it's better when you see something and it just takes you by surprise. And like I say, with the whole ESPYs, the Game of the Year being some high school football game, it must have done something so well that it went from something that would be completely nothing.
Here's the thing, though, like
being worthy of being in the category of a Super Bowl.
I get what you're saying. Like, that's a fair point. That, and again, to me, it's an opinion based thing. So it all depends on what you're looking for, what kind of checks the boxes. And I don't think you're wrong, because I think it's a fair opinion. I would go in a different direction and say, if it was a Super Bowl or the NBA Finals Game 7. If it's one of those type of games, and yeah, you're expecting it to be a classic, but if it over exceeds the expectations, where it's like, okay, this is we were knowing it was going to be a good game, but it was an awesome game, it was the game of the decade kind of a thing. To me, that's what puts it in a different category of Game of the Year. So, like, if you have a Super Bowl matchup and you're like, all right, these two teams are the best in their respective conferences, so you're expecting that to be a really good game, but it comes down to like mere inches and just a miracle of sorts that a team wins or loses just by like the skin of their teeth. That to me is Game of the Year. It's not just like the average, quality Game 7 of an NBA game or MLB playoff game or something. It would be in that ilk. It would be like a Super Bowl where we know it's supposed to be good, but it over delivers. So for me, like, I would rather see, and this kind of goes back to Will Osprey in the MJF match, where these are, I consider like almost like a Super Bowl per se. Like, you have on one side one of the best in the world versus another one of the best in the world, and they're facing off, and we expect it to be a great match because it's two really good competitors. But guess what happens? It over-delivers. And in my opinion, when something over-delivers like that, in hindsight, I would rather have seen it on a pay-per-view. That's just my opinion.
I will say a final takeaway from this, right? Obviously, Will Osprey had the choice months ago, and Triple H made the comments about how Will Osprey maybe isn't dedicated to the grind, so he's okay that the WWE didn't sign them. He didn't mention Will Osprey by name, but we all knew who he was talking about, right?
Yeah.
And I will say in that sense, speaking about Will Osprey, he is the best wrestler in the world. And not saying that Triple H is necessarily wrong-ish, but whatever, like, he is the best wrestler in the world. Like, Triple H says that he essentially in this area, he looked back on the decision or looked at the decision and thinks he made a good decision once the future came out and Will Osprey kind of talked about wanting to work the lighter schedule. I don't necessarily think that that's the best thing in the world, but if Will Osprey keeps doing what he's doing, I'm not going to question his schedule. I'm not going to, if he says what he says when it comes to that schedule and then he's not delivering, then yeah, he's a bust. But right now, it's like the Allen Iverson and the practice thing, right? If you don't want to show up to practice, that only matters if you don't deliver, right? But if you end up winning your team, the NBA Finals, no one cares if Allen Iverson shows up for practice, right?
Here's what I'll say, though.
Will Osprey does what he does this past week. No, I'm not concerned.
Can I ask you something, though? If you're talking Will Osprey, are you talking the total package, or are you just talking strictly in the ring?
I'm saying strictly, you're right. It's a little bit difficult, the whole total package. And I get WWE, and I think he probably made the good decision for himself because of the fact that WWE would rather have a 20-minute match with a better character than a 1-hour match with his current character. I kind of get that. So I think that he probably did. Both sides made the better decision. He's going to get to put on amazing matches and be the best wrestler in the world, while Triple H and WWE, to be fair, I'm glad he's not WWE because he wouldn't be able to do the things he's doing there. And I think he might flutter. And it kind of makes me more excited to see what the potential of Ricochet will be when he makes it to AEW, because clearly, obviously, his character had some sort of confines.
Let me circle back on this Will Osprey thing being like the greatest wrestler in the world right now. And here's the thing. I'm going to say this, and this is probably going to get flack from some of our loyal fans that follow the show on on our YouTube, our podcast channels, and all that. For me personally, there's still two wrestlers in WWE that I would take in a match, even at this point in their careers, over Will Osprey. And number one, I still think Seth Rollins is the best wrestler on the planet. And people can give me flack for that. I think he's not only the best wrestler, but he's the best total package. I don't think Will Ospreay is as great of a promo as people think he is. I think Seth Rollins does it all.
Oh, and
yeah. Another
Rollins promo, sure, absolutely.
And Randy, here's the thing, Randy Orton. I know Randy Orton's a little bit older, like the injuries and that. Randy Orton, and remember what JBL used to say, if you could build a wrestler from the foundation up, that's your guy. Randy Orton does everything possible. He's good in the ring. The psychological side of it, everything that he does, I would take those two over Will Ospreay. And I'm not saying that to diss on Will Ospreay, because I think Will Ospreay is fantastic, and it's not because I'm a WWE guy more so than AEW. I respect what he does. I think he is one of the best in the business, no question about it. But to me, in my opinion, I'd rather see a Seth Rollins than a Randy Orton. That's just me. But and here's the thing. Let me ask you this real quick. Wouldn't you want to see a Seth Rollins and or Randy Orton versus a Will Ospreay? Because sign me up for that.
I will say that those are kind of different styles. I guess my one thing, and I saw this when I watched Will Osprey just on Dynamite a few weeks ago in person, and that's what I would and what I would say is, if I was going to take somebody who's not going to be a long-term investor in wrestling, who's not into the long-term storytelling that a Seth Rollins or even a Randy Orton is going to provide, isn't caring about legacy, isn't caring about the history and all the achievements and the things that those guys have brought to the sport of professional wrestling. If I was going to say, hey, you want to entertain yourself, kind of like somebody who's not a NASCAR fan, but hey, everyone loves the Demolition Derby. Somebody who's not an NBA fan, but wants to watch a slam dunk contest. Ricochet, I would give you that. Because, he wrestled for 20 minutes or so in a tag team match at the end of the main event of Dynamite I went to a few weeks ago in Buffalo. And he did moves, and like we talked about this before, like how like the GCWs of the world kind of make it so that they do things that discount the move. But I don't necessarily think Will Osprey. He's not going, because it's not like light tubes, it's not tables, it's not the over excessive use of objects that essentially take away their effect, because GCW will throw somebody through a flaming table in a meaningless pre-show match, while WWE will make a regular table shot be the move of the year in the main event of WrestleMania and have importance because it's got the importance around it, right? So a lot of people might give Ricochet some discount, or not Ricochet, even Ricochet though, but somebody a discount when it comes to Will Osprey because he's doing a move in a meaningless match. But his moves are not necessarily like those power moves. It's not like overusing tables or light tubes, because those are supposed to essentially kill a regular person. It's his acrobats and his flips that essentially, when he does them in either way, are not necessarily there to be the knockout punch. Even if he did it in WWE, it wouldn't necessarily be the finale of the match. It is just super entertaining. It is super athletic. And it is something that takes your breath away. And I don't think it's too overused, but it is definitely something I would show a non-wrestling fan. And I think they would find more entertainment on that. If they're not going to be invested in the long-term story, if they're not invested, right? If they're not invested in the long-term story, they're going to watch WrestleMania main event, Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns this past year, and be like, I don't know either of these guys. I don't really care, right? They want to just be entertained for 10 minutes. And I think obviously at WrestleMania they did that with the cameos, and I think with Will Osprey he can provide that. And I'm glad he's in AEW because he can provide that maybe a little bit better, because like you say, his character might just be Ricochet in the WWE. But the final point I want to make away from Will Osprey is just, I think MJF is back. There was a lot of talk from myself and maybe other people that MJF lost his step, and not in the ring, but in the promo sense, or just in the overall aura, the character. He was an aura when he came out, right? I think he lost a step when he came back. Maybe he's talking a little too much on the promos. Maybe he's not as controversial. Maybe he's not as cutting edge. Maybe he seems to be more of a face. Maybe he's not that guy who is 100% lives, like you wonder if this guy's a jerk, an asshole in or out of the ring, right? That's how good he was. And then he started to peel back a little bit and show some more vulnerability. And people were kind of being like, I don't know if I like this, because now he just looks like a regular guy, and he's kind of taken away. But I think this match in the ring, while necessarily not the promo, right? Not miss the promo, but this match in the ring kind of brought some of that, oh yeah, he's a really good wrestler. And that might have brought a lot more back to MJF's aura and his vibe and his presence. When you say he's a
really good wrestler, though, like, a lot of us already have known that. Like, I think you included, like, we both have.
But I think since he's come back and hasn't had the character to go with it, we need to kind of be reminded. That's all I'm just saying.
No, I agree with that. I think it did wonders for all parties involved. And that's the thing. I think it served its purpose in multitude of ways. And just a final point on it. I would, at the end of the day, I would have rather seen this type of match at a pay-per-view, because here's the thing. In AEW likes these long matches. It would have been perfect for a pay-per-view.
Well, maybe not if they have 9 other matches going.
That's a valid point.